Hello there and welcome to this our very first episode of the Catholic Millennial Show, where I bring you our weekly news highlights. I'm Ryan Everson, Editor-in-Chief of the Catholic Millennial, and we've had a very exciting week, especially in the pro-life arena, so let's get right to it. This past weekend, pro-life marches and rallies across America came to a close with the Walk for Life in San Francisco. The Walk for Life is the second largest pro-life march in the country, second only to the March for Life in D.C. I was fortunate enough to be there myself with Students for Life of America, and it was absolutely incredible. NBC Bay Area estimates that there were over 50,000 people at the walk from all over the West Coast, and there was a particularly large Catholic presence, as there always is at these pro-life marches. National Catholic Register spoke with David Daleiden about the size and atmosphere of the march. David is the head of the Center for Medical Progress, which is responsible for the undercover videos that caught Planned Parenthood selling fetal body parts and engaging in other illegal activities. More on that later in just a bit. David said that about a decade ago, attending the Walk for Life in San Francisco felt like running the gauntlet, quote, but says that the walk has grown significantly in size and momentum in the recent years, reflecting in the cultural shifts that have been going on in our culture, especially amongst the young people. David said, quote, "These marches feel like victory marches now, for the first time, because we're winning," close quote. The following day, David and a number of other pro-life leaders took the stage at the Students for Life National Conference and mentioned the recently opened Department of Justice investigation on Planned Parenthood. David seemed very confident that once due process has run its course, that Planned Parenthood will be found guilty of participating in numerous illegal activities, and they would consequently lose all of their government funding, which amounts to over $500 million per year. As you also may have heard, the president of Planned Parenthood, Cecile Richards, announced that she will be stepping down from her position after being in charge for 12 years. David Daleiden said he thinks it is no coincidence that Richards has decided to do this so soon after the Department of Justice investigation was announced. And as I said before, David seems quite confident that PP is going to be in some hot water relatively soon here. So fingers crossed, we'll hold our breath and see when new news comes out on that. Moving on, Monday, the U.S. Senate voted on the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act. This bill would have made abortion illegal under almost all circumstances after 20 weeks gestation age, which is when the baby can feel pain. The U.S. is one of only 7 countries to allow elective abortions after 20 weeks, the other countries being Vietnam, China, Canada, Singapore, the Netherlands, and North Korea. You don't need to be a pro-lifer to see that that's not exactly the best company as far as human rights goes. It's also interesting to note that almost all Western nations make abortion illegal somewhere between 12 and 20 weeks. And in Ireland and Northern Ireland, elective abortion is illegal altogether. The bill had already passed in the House of Representatives in the fall, but unfortunately was unable to pass in the Senate on Monday. Though the bill won the simple majority of the Senate by a vote of 51 to 46, it failed to reach the supermajority of 60 votes necessary to be sent to the White House. 3 Democrats voted in favor of the bill, 2 Republicans voted against the bill, 5 senators abstained, and everybody else voted along party lines. The United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, the USCCB, condemned the Senate that same day. Cardinal Timothy Dolan, who is the Archbishop of New York and the USCCB chair of pro-life activities, issued the statement, calling the pain-capable bill, quote, common sense legislation, and saying, quote, I call upon the public to tell the Senate that this vote was absolutely unacceptable, close quote. So after the bill died on Monday, a lot of pro-lifers were left discouraged and wondering what hope was left, because this loss made it clear that this Congress was not going to make any significant compromises to Roe v. Wade, and it's uncertain when we may have such a great opportunity again. However, that depression did not last for very long, and the pro-life movement got reignited by a new spark from one of the last places you would ever think, and that is the New York Times. So, on Thursday, February 1st, the NYT published an op-ed from their columnist David Brooks titled The Abortion Memo, where Brooks, as a Democratic voter himself, explained why he believes it is in the best interest of the Democratic Party to make significant compromises to the DNC's current position on abortion. That being that abortion on demand for all 9 months of pregnancy should be legal, and that also includes the desire to overturn the Hyde Amendment, which would allow tax funding to go directly towards abortions. Right now, because of the Hyde Amendment, tax money cannot go directly towards abortions. This is a very radical position, even in the eyes of the secular public. As I said before, only 6 other countries allow abortion after 20 weeks, and this position goes much further than that, which is why Brooks expressed his thoughts on why the Democratic Party should not hold this position. In the memo, Brooks invited Democrats to, quote, imagine what would happen if Roe versus Wade was overturned. He also references the changing cultural currents among young people, hashtag pro-life-gen, way to go guys, noting that in 1991, 36% of young voters thought abortion should be legal in all circumstances, but now only 24% do. He also says, quote, young pro-choice voters are more ambivalent or apathetic than young pro-life ones. Again, pro-life-gen, way to go. So as you might imagine, this had Planned Parenthood and NARAL and friends screaming bloody murder all day. And really all weekend. In fact, the following day, on Friday, PP sent a massive email out to all of their supporters, urging them to send angry tweets of disapproval to David Brooks and the New York Times. And we're going to read part of that Planned Parenthood email message right here. So, the message starts off, Dear friend, you've likely seen the egregious piece published in the New York Times by columnist David Brooks, the abortion memo. The piece calls on Democrats to compromise on abortion in light of the recent vote in the Senate on the 20-week abortion ban. David Brooks' column is devoid of any relevant facts. They're not just saying that they disagree with some stuff. They're saying there's no relevant facts in the memo, which is a very bold claim. You should have some evidence for such a bold claim. It leaves out the people and perspectives of people who need access to abortion. Don Lagwins, Executive Vice President of Planned Parenthood Federation of America, wrote a memo in response to the abortion memo. They go on, we'll get to that memo, the counter memo, as we'll call it in just a minute. After that, in the email, they say, speak out and share your outrage on social media, exclamation point. Respond to Mr. Brooks and the New York Times editorial page editors expressing disapproval over the publication of this terrible piece. Attention, share at PPAC's response to the egregious at New York Times op-ed by at NYT David Brooks supporting the dangerous 20-week abortion ban. I love how they throw that dangerous in as a buzzword a lot. I'm not sure what's dangerous about it. They do that a lot. Anyways, dangerous 20-week abortion ban legislation that attempted to restrict constitutional access to abortion. And there is no such thing as constitutional access to abortion, and one day history will reflect that as such. The rest of the email is pretty repetitive. So going back, they mentioned there is a memo, a Planned Parenthood memo, a counter memo in response to the New York Times abortion memo from the Vice President of Planned Parenthood. So the counter memo, as we'll call it, really had nothing very remarkable or persuasive in it. It said that support for Roe versus Wade was at an all-time high, which is simply not true. It also said caused pointless fear-mongering among pro-choice readers by asking them to imagine what it would be like if women had to travel out of the country to get an abortion. This statement was made purely for the purpose of scaring pro-choicers into siding with PP in this debate. And here's why. First, even with the rise of the pro-life movement, we are still far from having the momentum we need to overturn Roe versus Wade. Again, we failed to even pass the 20-week compromise bill just this week. Second, if Roe versus Wade was overturned, that wouldn't make abortion illegal. That would just send the issue to the states, as David Brooks notes in his NYT memo. And a large minority of the states would keep abortion legal, at least at this point in time. If Lagwin seriously thinks states like California, Washington, and New York would abolish abortion if given the opportunity, she's nuts. But that isn't what she thinks. She was simply taking advantage of people's ignorance and using scare tactics to get people to side with her. Relatedly, remember that Cecile Richards just resigned. So as the VP, Don Lagwins is a likely candidate to take over of Planned Parenthood. That's why she wrote the counter memo. So what Lagwins is likely doing is telling her own base, that base being the free abortion on demand pro-choice absolutists, exactly what they wanted to hear. She told them the pro-choice position is more popular than it actually is. She portrayed opponents of even the most radical pro-choice legislation, including Democrats like David Brooks, as being evil and quote-unquote dangerous. And she implied that David Brooks was incompetent to speak on the subject simply because he is a man. The last one is really quite an empty argument, and yet it keeps coming up time and time again. If anyone ever mentions the quote-unquote no uterus, no opinion nonsense and says you can't express your views on abortion because you're a man, please remind them that all 9 of the Roe versus Wade Supreme Court justices were men. So, wrapping all this up, regardless of where you as an individual may sit on other political issues, I'd like to ask that all Catholics and all pro-lifers of religious faith pray that Democratic leaders take the NYT abortion memo seriously. Because when it comes to political matters, before our personal opinions, we are always Catholics first. We must desire God's will first. And if God had things his way, there would be no political party on earth, left, right, or center, in favor of the death and dismemberment of innocent children. So please pray that the DNC will take this memo seriously and pray that they will amend their party policies on abortion, because that is the way that we will be able to get bipartisan legislation signed, and that is the way that we, the pro-life generation, can end Roe versus Wade. Hey there, everyone. Thanks for watching this episode of the Catholic Millennial Show. All of our current and future projects here at the Catholic Millennial are dependent upon your support. If you'd like to help us and receive some killer Catholic swag, we'd be incredibly thankful if you could join us on Patreon by clicking the link in the title description or by going to catholicmillennialblog.com/Patreon. But maybe you're a young adult trying to get your life together and disposable income is kind of tight. Or maybe you're a seminarian or religious sister and disposable income is kind of non-existent. That's totally cool. If you could please follow us on social media and share our content with your friends, that would also be incredibly helpful and we'd really, really appreciate it. Thanks again, and we will see you back here next week for the Catholic Millennial Show. God bless.